There's a thing called opportunity cost. Whenever you look at those people in your family in your life, I want you to think, are they open and available for you to teach them how to invest into the S&P? That's what you got to do. When you're starting off with people, don't get them into no options. Don't get them into no crypto. Start them off with the S&P. I want you to start here because everybody else starts at the top when they're trying to build a house. They building a roof first. You like, okay, what about the foundation? You got to build the basement. You got to build the ground floor. Nah, they starting at options. They swing trading GameStop options. And you like, yo, and they doing it with their life savings. They ain't doing it right.
I agree 100% with what Kenan was saying in that clip that I just shared. And I had a family member come to me with an investment that they made years ago, over 25 years ago. If I'm calculating this correctly, they got into this investment before they started working at a place that had benefits, a retirement account, health insurance, dental, all of that good stuff. They decided to, one year, when they did their tax return, put $500 into an investment account to potentially be their retirement account until they were able to have one through their employer. Never added any additional money into it. $500 was invested. So now, many years later, we're taking a look at it together. And they were invested into Invesco OAAX, which is a fund that is basically a grouping of other Invesco funds, including some that are S&P 500 focused, like this pure growth ETF and low volatility ETF. I know this is hard to see, but these are all various Invesco funds at different percentages that this fund is weighted at. Over time, and I'm not even sure why the money got invested into this particular fund, because this fund dates back to 2005, and I believe the investment dates back to the 90s. But, anyways, somehow it wound up invested into this. They now have 82.1 shares of OAAAX. And please remember, I am not recommending this fund. This is the fund that we are getting rid of and moving into a fund that gives exposure to the S&P 500 in replacement of this. But I'm sharing it because I want us to be aware of and use this as an example of something that we need to be on top of, to have an understanding of the performance, the expense ratio, the dividend yield. So I have the actual statement of the account right here. Invesco was charging an annual maintenance fee of $25. I have the performance of the fund pushed out to the max here, and it's 38% since 2005. It has an expense ratio of 1 full percent. So already I've shared many things about this that are negatives. A high expense ratio, poor performance as compared to what I'm going to show you with the S&P 500, and on top of the expense ratio, a high yearly maintenance fee. So, before we go on to some of my more preferred funds that I currently invest into, let's look at Invesco's S&P 500 option, which is SPIAX. Now, this fund was created back in the year 2000, and I have the performance here pushed out to the max. This would have been a better option, obviously, at 261%, but we still have the issue of the maintenance fee and a high expense ratio at 0.54%, lower than the full 1% on OAAX, but still not acceptable to me. So, what I've encouraged this person to do is let's just leave Invesco completely, and we're going to move on to an account at Fidelity. So now let's look at Fidelity's mutual fund option that gives exposure to the S&P 500, FXAIX. I have this fund also pushed out to the max. This fund was created back in 2011. Now, here on Google Finance, they're only showing the expense ratio out to digits past the decimal point. Let me pull it up on Fidelity itself. All right, so this is the Fidelity website. You see that the expense ratio is 0.015 for this fund. No transaction fees. You can create an IRA, invest into this fund, and you won't be burdened with the annual maintenance fee and the higher expense ratio that you would at Invesco. And let's just take a quick look at another option that gives exposure, a lower expense ratio, and that you can have access to with lower fees. So, this fund was created back in 2010. And since the inception of this fund, it's up 370.8%. Its expense ratio is 0.03. So we can't turn back the clock, but as we know better, we can do better. And this fund that has only doubled in over 20 years is now valued at $1,073, is now, as of when it gets moved into Fidelity and into this S&P 500 index fund, finally going to get put to work going forward for more positive growth. I love sharing things like this on my channel because I want us to all open our eyes to our investments and make sure that we are maximizing our returns. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and notification bell. This journey to make money. But we have to have knowledge, have a full understanding, have our eyes open, and evaluate our investments. Let's go back to taking a look at FXAIX. Year to date, just in 2024, it's up over 10%. In a 1-year time frame, it's up 32%. As opposed to being in a fund that has a 6% rate of return year to date and a 13% rate of return over the last year. This investment was made way back when this person was in their 20s. They are now 50 years old. At the time, the guidance that they received, I hope, was with a good intention and was originally put into a fund that was performing well. But so many years later, these things need to be evaluated. We put so much time and effort into, for example, planning a vacation, finding flights and hotels and excursions and all of those type of things. Find some time in your year to sit down and get an understanding of your investments, of your 401k, of your IRA, whatever it is. Do some research, have an idea of what you are looking for, what questions to ask, so that you have something to bring to the table when you call your broker and see if the performance of your portfolio is what you expect and what you are happy and content with. If it's not, put the time and energy into making the necessary changes. So, if you're ready to open a new portfolio, check out my investment links. It'll be pinned in the comments and in my description area. And check out my Investing 101 playlist for information on other beginner friendly investment ETFs and index funds that give you exposure to the S&P 500 or total stock market. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.